This is MTNmeister, the podcast that explores the minds of those who explore. On this show, we find people who are pushing it to the absolute limit, doing things that we sometimes can't even fathom.
Let's take the Eiger North Face, which I climbed in 2 hours 47 minutes, which I think was kind of a higher risk.
But by exploring their minds, we find ideas that apply to all of our lives.
If you only stay in this mid-range all the time, you never get better. So you really have to go to the edge and push it.
Meister fans, old and new, hello. If you're of the new variety, welcome. I think you're going to like what you're about to hear. And there's plenty more where that came from. This is our 118th episode, which means that you only have 117 left to listen to. If you're of the old variety, or should we say experienced variety, welcome. Thanks for joining once again, and thanks for all of your support. If you'd like to introduce more of the new variety to MTNmeister, there's an easy way to do that. On iTunes, you can leave us a review. It's super easy, super free, and helps us get discovered by people who are looking for a super good podcast. Join the 95 other people who have left us reviews. Maybe you can help us get to 100. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MTNmeister. Today, we are excited to welcome Ueli Steck. Ueli, hello.
Hello.
And good night where you are. You're in Switzerland?
Yeah, I'm back home in Switzerland, and yeah, it's kind of stark and quite stormy out there now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Normally, I deal with the time change in the other direction. I'm on the East Coast of the United States dealing with the people on the West Coast.
Yeah.
For the listeners who don't know Ueli, he's a Swiss mountaineer who is well known for his speed ascents in the Alps and Himalaya. He climbs mountains that normally take skilled climbers days and a few hours. He's been awarded the Piolet, or one of climbing's highest honors, twice. Ueli, I'm a huge tennis fan, and there's another Swiss machine, that's your nickname, who you may have heard of. His name's Roger Federer.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic athlete, and I think he's an outstanding tennis player, and of course he's famous also in Switzerland.
Have you had a chance to meet Mr. Federer?
I never met him personally.
No?
No.
So many people look at the things that you do and say to themselves, like, I have no idea how he could possibly do that. There are people who say the same thing for Roger Federer. Are there any athletes, or I guess it doesn't even have to be an athlete, just somebody outside of the climbing discipline where you say to yourself, like, wow, I have no idea how that person does that?
Everything you're not into it seems like kind of impossible, like all the sports you don't really know. It's like, it looks like impossible. Like even playing tennis, how they play tennis, it's like, how I cannot imagine how you're doing this. So I think that's just how it works. I mean, everything you don't really know, it looks like kind of insane.
And it's just like a compounding effect, day after day after day of doing something, you get good at it. What did you do today?
Today I'm a little bit, I just broke my ankle like 10 days ago. So
oh no,
it's not. I'm not in my best period of my life, so I spend a lot of time in the gym lifting weights and indoor cycling.
I'm sorry to hear that about your ankle. I did not know that. Injury is pretty difficult as a professional athlete, huh?
Yeah, it can happen, and of course this is life, and you have to get the best out of it. And I have a really good team in my background, so they help me out, and I think I will not lose a lot of my strengths during this period.
Good. And on behalf of all the Meister fans out there, we wish you a speedy recovery. Uli, a MTNmeister discussion is not a typical discussion about climbing. In fact, we may look back a half hour from now and realize that we didn't talk about climbing at all. Quite frankly, most of the people, if not all of them, listening to the show can't relate to what you do. Just like with Roger Federer, it can be difficult to figure out how a person does something, but maybe not how they got there. And that's how I want to start today's conversation, is by picking your brain and figuring out how you got to where you are today. You have this ultimate combination of physical fitness, of course, technical mountaineering skill, and this incredible capacity for risk-taking, at least in my opinion. Skills can be inherited, you can be born with them, or acquired. I'm wondering, of those attributes or those skills that make you such a great climber, are those inherited or acquired, or maybe a little bit of both?
I think I'm a working person. I mean, I'm climbing now. It's 26 years, and I was always training, and I was focused on getting stronger. And I think on the end, it's just a fact of being focused and know where you want to go, and just train for it.
Let's say that you were switched with a baby at birth, and that baby grew up doing the same exact thing as you have done throughout your life. Do you think that other Ueli Steck would have been able to accomplish the same things that you have?
Yeah, of course. I think I'm not different to anybody else. So I'm not gifted, like be really talented for sports, and I think everybody can do what I'm doing. I don't think it's impossible.
Interesting. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's rule. It's the 10,000 hour rule, but basically he argues that if you spend enough time doing something, or 10,000 hours is the number that he figured out, if you look at the people who are really good at what they do, it's just kind of a matter of time.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I think it's, on the end, of course, I think the key point is like to figure out what you like to do, and then you invest a lot of commitment into something. And if you find this, then you're getting good on it. I think it's just a matter to find the way and the thing what you like to do, and then you spend enough time and you're motivated to get stronger.
Yeah, and you found climbing really early. So in that regard, you might be lucky that you found what you liked so early.
I think that's the other thing in life. Like, if you don't feel like you're doing what you want to do, you have to look for other things, and until you find it. Some people find it very early, and some people never find it in their whole life. So I think maybe that was, let's say that was the gift I got, like that I found really early what I like in life, and started climbing.
So we talk about some of the other things. We mentioned technical skill there that you have acquired over time just due to the time that you spent doing it. There are other places for the listeners to find out more about technical mountaineering stuff. We don't really cover that on this show. But risk tolerance is another thing that I think you have a very high capacity for. I guess we should start by asking you if you agree with me. Do you agree that you have a high tolerance for risk?
I'm for sure. I like to play in life. I'm not a guy who is happy just being in a safe position all the time. I think I need that kind of like playing around, and I think that's very important. But it's important you're not stupid. Like, I don't think I'm a guy who is like pushing a lot. I think I play really safe because I like to control, and I think that's what I'm looking for. I look for a risk or for something which looks like impossible and risky, and then I try to find a solution how I can control that. And I think that's what I like. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like 2 years ago we had like a really nice event with Audi where we could go driving with like racing pilots, and this is the same. Those guys, they were controlling the car, and this was really, really interesting for me. And I looked like, I mean, for me it would be impossible, but those guys, they can drive like really fast and they can control it. And for myself, it would be super dangerous to drive that fast. And I think that's the thing I'm doing and I'm looking for.
That's really neat. Yeah, seeing a reflection of what you do in somebody else, but something that's seemingly so different, like driving a car versus like high altitude mountaineering, seems so different. But when you can see the parallel, that's really neat. I heard you speak at the American Alpine Club's benefit dinner panel. And for the listeners, if you haven't heard that already, we recorded it. It's episode number 105 of MTNmeister. Go check that out. You said something really neat there. You said the less time that you stay in a risky environment, in this case it's the mountains that's the risky environment, the lower the risk. And that's something that people may not see when you're sprinting up the mountains, that, the time there is just so much less, so the risk of an objective hazard is much lower. However, there's a point where reducing time, I think, can become more dangerous, and I think some other people would agree with me. How do you balance going fast and potentially accepting more risk?
I mean, that's like personal decision. I mean, it's based on your skills. I totally agree. You can go fast and it can be totally safe, and you can go super fast and it's totally extremely dangerous. So like for me, let's take the Eiger North Face, which I climbed in 2 hours 47 minutes, which I think was kind of a higher risk, but I can climb now with these skills. I can climb the Eiger North Face in about 4 hours, and with taking not a lot of risk, climbing it really, really safe with my skills. And I just spent 4 hours in it. And I think I climb as safe as the most like parties, like using a rope, but they take like 10, 12 hours or even 2 days, which they spend in the Eiger North Face. So this risk is much, much higher. But of course, the really like on the edge speed climbing, this is super dangerous on the end.
Interesting. But you still do some, I mean, your 2 hour 47 minute was more of the dangerous variety. Do you ever feel like you need to do those more dangerous ones in order to get better for the safe pursuits?
I mean, you have to push in some way. You have to go on, push to the limit to improve your skills. Like if you only stay in this mid-range all the time, you never get better. So you really have to go to the edge and push it. But you can do it maybe once, or you just have to play smart. I mean, then you have to accept you cannot move all the time on this limit, but you have to go to that point. Otherwise, you never improve.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that you and Sir Chris Bonington agreed on in that panel discussion was that there's this internal feeling that tells you whether or not you should go on. Can you describe in more detail what that feeling is? Like, what do you feel where you choose to go on?
I think it's a feeling. It's not rational. It's something you feel like, kind of like today is a good day or today is not a good day. It's kind of like you have to listen to your stomach. I always say, like, but you have to make sure you are in a position where you have the time and you can listen to your feelings. If you're pushed, for example, by, let's see, you have like a cameraman or whatever, you're really pushed and then you ignore these feelings, and I think this is super dangerous. So I think it's very important to keep that out of something where you really try to push the limit, that you're just playing your own game, and you have the possibility, and you have the choice to listen to your feelings. But these feelings, it's hard to describe. I think it's just something really weird, and you just have to listen to it.
Yeah, you talk about how there could be distractions there, and many of your accomplishments are solo. You have essentially eliminated all other potential for human interaction with your own internal feeling, right?
Yeah, but exactly on these solos, it's really important that you have no people around which distract you, and I think it's also part of soloing, because that's what you want to deal with. For me, it's kind of like it makes a solo real solo, like when you're alone. And I think this is really an interesting part, and which makes you also stronger on the end, because you have to deal with yourself without talking to other people.
Yeah. So the internal feeling is very, very interesting. The only problem I have with it is, and I want you to comment on this, is that if it hasn't worked for people, we might not ever know, because they're most likely dead, right? Like in this extreme environment, the person whose internal decision maker was wrong won't be around to tell us not to listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a discussion we can go on forever now. But, I was reading an article about managers just recently, and there was also the question, what makes the difference between a good manager of a company and a bad one? And I mean, you can make analyses and anything, like doing your job, but everybody agrees on the end, it's just you make decisions. They're like, it's just your internal feeling. And there are people, they just do the right decisions, and there are people, they just don't do the right decisions. And in the mountains, it's what you say, if you do the wrong decision, you're gonna die. So, and we never know why. So
It's weird to think about. On kind of the psychology of this, there's a lot of research out there about how people make decisions, and generally people agree that there are kind of two systems. There's the system 1 and the system 2. System 1 is your more intuitive, like automatic system, low effort, things that solve 2 plus 2, or when you're driving on a highway, you're basically using system 1. And then the system 2 requires more reasoning and more of a thoughtful approach. It's high effort, and it's sometimes called thinking slow. When you're listening to this podcast, you're most likely doing something that requires only your system 1. Maybe you're driving on the highway, like I said, or maybe you're going for a run. But if you try to listen to this podcast while you're using your system 2, say you're doing something analytical at work, it's probably difficult to concentrate on both things at the same time. Moving on, the part of the episode that everybody has been waiting for. We like to get a gear recommendation from all of the Meisters that come on. For yours, I wanted to mix it up a little bit. Because you're known for your speed ascents, your light and fast ascents, what is a piece of gear that you leave behind, you leave out of your bag, that some people might decide to take with them?
I don't know what people bring for a 3-hour climb, but I mean, on a 3-hour climb, you don't need a lot of food. You need maybe 2-3 energy gels, and that's it. And a lot of people need a lot more food for 3 hours. So
you take two to 3 gels with you. That's it.
Yeah, that should be enough, and half a liter of liquid if you're climbing in winter. So I think that makes a huge difference, and yeah.
Very good. For the listeners, forget the food, but don't forget to go to Ueli's Meister profile page on our website, MTNmeister.com. We'll have highlights of today's episode. And also, let's not forget to thank a sponsor of ours who made this episode possible, Champion Sport Extreme, or CSX. They engineer braces, straps, and compression socks that are engineered to withstand the demands of the elite athlete, like you, Ueli. Now, this isn't your grandpa's tube sock. CSX's compression socks are equipped with an extra wide self-adjusting band at the top to prevent slippage, a seamless toe box for greater comfort and less friction around your toes, and a V-guard design on the shin to reduce pain for those with shin splints and protection against shin splints for those who don't. For 50% off of your entire purchase from csxchampion.com, type in the code MEISTER, MEISTER, at checkout. Full details on our website under the deal section. Moving on, we gave the listeners of MTNmeister, the wonderful listeners that we have, an opportunity to submit questions on our Facebook page. Sue Newby House says, "Hi Ben, exceptional podcast." Thank you, Sue. I tend to agree. Does Ueli have a specific training workout regarding elevation gain, weight carried, and duration that he would share? So as people start to go to higher elevation, do you have any specific thoughts on training?
I think it's really important to understand that climbing on 8,000 meter, you're really like, you have to work on your baselines. Like, it doesn't help you a lot if your cardio skills, like your heart rate, you can go like on a really high max heart rate. I think this is mostly baseline, what you have to work on 8,000 meter peaks, and so focus on that and not like on short high intensity cardio training.
Another question from Jesse, who says, can you ask him about his trail running? How important is it as part of his training, distances, frequency, etc.?
I try to run a lot. I mean, I'm not a really good trail runner, but it's just a good part of my climbing. So I think it's good to work on my cardio. But on the end, I have to be careful, because it doesn't help me if I have a really, really strong cardio on the running and I cannot climb anymore, because I think that's the key point. You have to be able to move fast in technical terrain, and that's my big strength. So I have to be careful. I'm not focused too much on trail running, but basically in summer I run every day. So
you run every day in the summer, and how far?
It depends. It's depends if I go on for kilometers or for altitude gain, but usually it's, if I do altitude, I make like 1,500 vertical meters a day. Or right now, recently, I was on 2,000 vertical meters a day. So that's a basic. And on distance, depends for what I'm looking for, but it's between 100 and 150 Ks a week.
So for our American listeners, let me just look this up, 100 kilometers a week. So you're doing between 60 and 90, 60 to 90 miles a week. That's a lot. All right, one final question. We are based out of Boston, and we have a lot of listeners in the Northeast. Have you done any climbing in the Northeast?
No.
Sorry. Nothing.
Nothing.
How about out west in America? Any climbs that you find particularly challenging?
I mean, I spent a lot of time in Yosemite. I climbed a lot on the West Coast, and I also come back this spring for climbing in the West Coast. So it's good rock climbing. Very
cool. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the past. Let's talk about the future. You are a professional athlete. You're paid by sponsors for the most part. A lot of people get mountain guiding confused with the more personal pursuit. Have you done any guiding?
I'm not a mountain guide, so I'm not doing any guiding.
Do you have any desire to become a mountain guide in the future?
No, I know I would be a terrible mountain guide, so that's why I'm not doing it. I'm not patient enough to do that job. So that was the decision. I've never done it.
It reminds me of just in the academic world, there are some people who are so smart and would make terrible teachers, and they admit it themselves. Like, I just wouldn't make a good teacher. This kind of reminds me of that. You are so skilled in the mountains, but you claim that you wouldn't be a good mountain guide.
Yes.
Also, this is maybe a heavier topic. You have a wife now, correct?
Yeah.
Do you think that your approach in the mountains has changed since you got married? And then also, you don't have kids. If you did have kids one day, do you think that your risk tolerance would change in the mountains?
I mean, I think it's the risk tolerance. It's just a matter of age, like when you get older, your risk tolerance gets less. That's just normal.
Interesting.
I mean, because of some experience you had, like when you're young, maybe you don't have any accidents, and if you see accidents, it's never like you're never involved with it, and then after the years, people die, which and maybe you're involved in accidents, and then you start to realize it could happen to you as well, and you start to think about it. So this changes a lot, and of course, the whole life, you just grow, and your risk tolerance gets less, that's for sure. I would not say that my wife changed completely my life, but of course, we're having discussions about what I should do and what not, if it really makes sense to do this risk. But I see that really, really positive in my life, because I'm pretty sure without my wife, maybe I would be already dead. So I think it's good to have her and having these topics together.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that you would be dead without your wife?
She usually puts me down on earth. Sometimes when you start climbing, on a certain point, you think everything is possible. It worked, and then you do the next step and the next step, and you need somebody who just reflects that a little bit different and put you down on earth and thinks about it differently, and that's very important.
Did you expect that when you married her?
We didn't get married because we had to get married, because we lived together for years before, so nothing changed with the marriage. So I think this was already before like that.
Yeah, good point. Ueli Steck, thank you so much for discussing this. And I know you're more comfortable talking about the technical stuff on mountaineering, but I think it's so interesting to explore kind of the other untouched parts of your high altitude mountaineering. For the listeners, you can check out highlights of today's episode on our website, MTNmeister.com. There's also tons of information on Ueli online. To wrap things up, Ueli, you are the mountain meister on today's show. Who would you like to hear from on a future episode?
That's a tough decision, but I don't know. Maybe Alex Honnold would be a good guy. I
100% agree.
Yeah.
For the listeners, stay tuned. Alex Honnold may be on a future episode of Mountain Meister, should he choose to accept. Ueli, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And hey, have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, thank you. You have a good day.
Thanks for listening to Ueli Steck's episode of Mountain Meister. Thanks to Ueli for staying up late and talking to us. And thanks to our sponsor, Champion Sport Extreme. Don't forget about that exclusive deal, 50% off of everything that they have to offer. You can go to the deal section on our website for full details. If you love MTNmeister, let us know. Leave us a review on iTunes. Shoot me a note, ben@mtnmeister.com. If you hate MTNmeister, or you hate me, let me know why, and we'll see what we can do. And if you feel so about us, you're like, nah, MTNmeister's okay, let us know what we can do to be great. I hope you have a great time doing whatever you do when you listen to this podcast. Until next time, I'm the host, Ben Shank. You've been listening to MTNmeister.